All right, and we're back. Daru Strong episode number 19. Daru Strong Podcast. Welcome back, guys. Today, we had Hayden and the world famous, the strongest female pound for pound in the world, Stefi Cohen. She actually came to the gym, came to the office, so we did a podcast talking about just her abilities and then how she actually came up in the game. Also, what she does from the not only the performance side, but what she does with coaching, and she also is a doctor of physical therapy. What we did today was basically went through the podcast, and then we got a training session in that I wasn't fully prepared for. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I had to make sure that I put my boy Hayden through a little workout, and almost made him pass out. So that was fun. But you can find that over on the YouTube channel. Now we're gonna get into the podcast, but before we do so, I want to make sure that I shout out the sponsors: Revive MD, ReviveSubs.com. Go to Revive MD. Check out my very own Phil Daru Athlete Stack. You can get it there, and you can use my discount code DaruStrong20 to get 20% off. Make sure you check that out. Also want to make sure that you remember that my Body Armor program, my Bodyweight 8-week program, is available now for 50% off. So go on to my website, check it out, get after it. Even though we're in hard times right now, a lot of people can't make it to the gym. Don't worry, I got you. Go ahead, go to get the Body Armor program, bodyweight only, and still make your gains. All right, now, on to the episode. This one and this one? Ooh, all right. You good? You ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right, so we already are rolling. All right, we got Stefi Cohen, Hayden.
Yep.
Hayden's here, and Maureen Shea. Now, let me just tell you, these guys already hit it off very well. We got my professional boxer. We got maybe one of the best, I would say the strongest woman in the world, right?
Pound for pound?
Pound for pound. Look, she's got it.
Own it. Own it. That's right.
She also told me I need coasters on my damn table, so get fucking coasters. That's on her, though.
Oh, it's my fault.
That's it. I'm gonna say, because
we're big wood guys.
She does all this stuff over here. She sets it up. I'm gonna say shit.
I think if you had a more expensive table, you would definitely respect.
How do you know?
This is expensive.
No, he told me he wants to get rid of it.
This isn't his. This isn't his. Don't call the shots. Okay.
You don't got a mic. That's all.
All right. That's it. Oh, here it comes. Here it comes. My son's about to knock in. Yep. You got it, buddy?
Hi.
Slide through, man. Slide through. You're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make it. You wanna?
Oh, we got it.
All right.
All right.
He's sending me his picture here. It's take your son to work day. And
he had batting practice before?
Yeah, batting practice. Let me see. Which one is this? Okay.
He's so cute.
What is this, man?
It's the same one, but it's different.
Oh, same one, but it's different. All right. Bet. I'm going to leave it right here. All right.
Do I get one?
Oh.
All right, bye.
Oh, that's
I
a
always
hard
slam
no.
that door.
You know why?
That's hard no.
You know why?
It's not the first time I've been rejected.
The coasters. That's what it was. She's like, listen.
You insulted Dad.
She
That's
wants
it.
one too. She wants one too. Okay. All right. Oh, okay.
He's so cute.
He was acting like he was meditating on the way over here, by the way. So I was like, oh, I'm super proud now. Like, am I doing it right, Dad? I was like, yeah, I guess so.
That's great.
So, Steffi, what's up? How you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
I know we've been in the same state for a long time. We finally get to connect. A lot of my people that follow me follow you. So it is a pleasure to have you. Hayden, thank you for getting her here safely. Kind of, I heard. Kind of, yes.
Yeah, we might have set some speed records.
Look, okay, so Hayden loves doing this thing where he just wants to cut time. You know, if you see it's 45 minutes, he's like, let's see how much faster we can get. Like how much can
competitive. I call that competitive.
Yeah.
And okay, so he starts driving as fast as possible. And part of me is like, I don't want to be a pussy. You know, I don't want to be like, slow down, Hayden. I don't want to be that girlfriend. So I'm like moving up to the seat, right? And all I hear is Hayden going. It's like the adrenaline. Like, I honestly hate this.
Yeah, you don't realize when you're driving super fast.
How fast did we get?
I think like 160.
Oh my God.
But
what are you driving?
No, he was.
He was in the car.
Yeah.
I can see now. That shit was a roller coaster ride. That was legit.
Yo, I get here, I sit down on the desk, and Phil's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not okay.
Definitely looked shook. I was like,
She
She needed the rain to calm her down.
You know what? you play both sides because you wanted me to get here super fast. She's like, we're going to be late.
That's why
I'm like,
you
okay, I'll drive fast.
Listen, y'all came 30 minutes early, so I'm happy with that. Usually when we have these, they're like, maybe 15 minutes late. So I wasn't, when you walked in the door, I was like, damn, she's here already. So that's cool. I appreciate that, guys. Kinda. Don't do this again. Listen, we don't condone speeding anyways. Possibly, but, if it happens to be like that, then we can make it happen. So, for the people that, I would say the 5 people that don't know you at all, right? Give them a little background. Like, where'd you start? How'd you start? And now you have a doctorate of physical therapy too as well. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Stefanie Cohen, or Stefi Cohen. Steffi is what my friends call me.
Mm-hmm.
I am a professional powerlifter. I've been lifting weights for about 10 years, done a bunch of different sports. Traditionally come from a soccer background. I played for the national soccer team back in Venezuela for about 5 years, and then attempted to play D1 here in the States, first moving to San Diego, then transferring over to Miami. Found it really hard, honestly, just like getting used to the culture, moving to another country on your own, figuring out like school, how to pass tests, finding your place like in a social circle, making friends. Like a lot goes on when you're moving to a completely different country. So that was the toughest decision I had to make, was like deciding that I wanted to be a student first. My family placed a lot of value in formal education, and I felt a lot of pressure coming from my family to, having to achieve a certain degree and pursuing. Siri, shut up. and having to, to pursue a certain level when it comes to like academics. So focused all my energy in school and quickly realized that a big part of who I am is or depends on being an athlete, and I really missed that. So I started started what I called my discovery phase, at least like when it comes to sports and also academics. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with my life in any way. So started doing a bunch of different sports, ran half marathons, tried triathlons, tried kickboxing around that time, eventually landing in CrossFit, which was kind of like my gateway drug into weightlifting. I had never done anything like that. When you play national level in a third world country like Venezuela, it's nothing like what you would imagine it is here.
Sure.
Like we don't have access to facilities like this one or coaches with like real education background within the sport. So coming here and seeing at least like how girls in D1, like what they had, they lift weights. I never did anything like that. So where was I going with this? Oh, lifting weights. Yeah, CrossFit was the first time that I was exposed to that. Immediately gravitated towards more of like the strength aspect of CrossFit, and that's kind of how I landed in Olympic weightlifting.
So,
and then powerlifting.
Actually, didn't you start it because it was your weakness?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you started working on weightlifting, because you
that's
had done
incredible.
That's great. Yeah.
So when you did CrossFit, like, were you doing like the WODs and everything? You started up at CrossFit Gym?
Yeah, honestly, I wanted to do like CrossFit Games.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. I had what's his name, Josh Bridges on recently.
He's badass.
Yeah. Thank you, bud. I appreciate that. This is for her? This one's for her?
That for me?
I'll give it to
Oh
her.
my
There you go.
gosh, thank you so
Oh,
much. I love
All right,
it.
go out there. Come here.
I'm going to hang this one in my office.
Okay, go ahead. So now we got to CrossFit, then now you're transitioning into, you did Olympic weightlifting, right? And how was that? How was that transition?
Yeah, so I initially, like Hayden said, I got into weightlifting as kind of like I want to get better at weightlifting because it's what I'm worst at for CrossFit. And then I ended up never going back into CrossFit because I started seeing a lot of progress in weightlifting. I found myself a coach that believed in me and that totally thought he could take me to the Olympics. And honestly, I was pretty good. Like, I think comparatively to the other girls in my weight class at that time, I think I was like either 1 or 2. But based on my numbers in the country. Yeah, based on what I was lifting.
I could definitely say, is that more of like a testament to your athleticism that where you picked it up quick, right?
I did pick it up pretty quick.
And also I think your like aptitude specifically for lifting and strength training. Like you had never attempted that before, so you didn't know you had that aptitude, but it was super clear to Camilo, who was her first weightlifting coach, and then to me when you started powerlifting, which I'm sure you'll get into after, that, like she was, from the second she touched a barbell, it was really, really obvious that she had a knack for it.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like you could have been great at anything. You just happen to pick up a barbell. That makes sense.
Yeah, you're annoyingly good at everything.
Uno and shit too. Like I probably busted off and
Literally everything. The first time she threw a football, she just like, oh, how do you do it? I'm like, oh, you put your hands like this, and she's like, oh, like this, perfect spiral, like laser.
We saw you doing the shuttle runs and everything on your Instagram, and I was just like, I was actually showing Mo, and he's like, man, she's fast. I was like, I think she's just good at everything.
Yeah, man, that's good. So now, like, okay, you've gotten to powerlifting at this point. Where I know you still kind of transition from powerlifting to weightlifting too, right? You go back and forth.
Yeah, so I mean that was the beginning of the hybrid method.
Mm-hmm.
When I got into grad school, I still was planning on training full time. You know, I had 9 training sessions that I had to do in a week. I had double sessions most days.
Gotcha.
And going to school, to grad school, you're a professional student essentially, and like that should be your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
It takes up a ton of time. So it became really challenging to get in those 2 sessions that I needed to get in order to continue improving at the rate that I needed to if I wanted to make the Olympic quarter.
Yeah.
She used to carry her barbell, like, because you needed a special barbell for Olympic weightlifting. So she'd literally carry it to school. She'd prop it up in the back of the classroom.
That's
Yeah.
dope.
So
Where are you going to school again?
UM.
Oh, you're at UM.
Yeah. So one of my strength and conditioning coaches from undergrad, he started his own business. It's called, what was it called? NCSF.
Mm-hmm.
NCSF, it's like one of to certified personal trainers, kind of a competitor to NASM and all of those.
Mm-hmm.
And his office was in the same building where all my classes were. And he had like a small gym with 2 platforms, 2 racks, and a bunch of plates.
Is he still there?
He's still there,
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And
Brian Biagioli.
Yeah. And he helped me out so much in that sense because I was able to, what I would do is I would skip like the last 30 minutes of my 11 a.m. class and then the first 30 minutes of my 1 p.m. class.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would give me a nice block of time to train. I would just not eat. I would bring my food and eat it in the back of the classroom afterwards. So just carry my bar, bring it up to the gym, do my power snatches and pulls and squats in the morning. Come back to classroom half an hour late, all sweaty, like eating my ground beef and rice or whatever it is that I brought in the back of the room. And that's kind of how I was making the sessions happen. But it got super challenging to a point where I was actually kicked out of grad school. After the 2nd semester, because whatever, they have this policy where if you get any less than a 75 in any test at any time, you get kicked out.
Wow.
What happened to me was that I didn't even know that had happened because
We were in Canada visiting my family for Christmas.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever failed a test, so I never check my grades at the end. I don't care for my grades. I know I'm doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't check them, and when I came back home, I had like a pile this big of cards from the dean of the school being like, you're out.
Damn.
Like, you have to respond or you're out.
That's
and
crazy.
that was like a bunch of them through the entire winter break.
Oh, shit.
So I got back to school, had to like defend myself, like appeal the rejection from the school. Pretty much like sit in a round table with like 15 professors, the dean of the school, everyone. And everyone knew what I was up to, right? Like they could see me skipping classes. They could, and that's what they see, right? This girl's not taking it seriously. Like she's training too much. She's late to class.
Yeah,
you know.
I can imagine.
So I pretty much had to explain why I deserved a second chance and why I thought I could succeed as a student and as an athlete. Even though like all the professors there were pretty much saying that. I remember this one instance clearly of I had a professor next to me, like right there where Hayden's sitting, and he was like, hey, I actually think you're not as strong as a student as you think you are, and I think you should choose between either being an athlete or being a student because you're likely not going to be able to do both.
And how many of them have done both? Exactly. How many of them were athletes? And exactly.
Probably none
It's
of
like,
them.
where are they speaking from?
Well,
From what
they're
place are you speaking from?
Basically
Based on what
their
they
own-
know.
Their own limitations. for
Exactly.
Exactly. So I just said, look, with all due respect, you know, appreciate the sentiment and you being worried that I'm not going to be able to do both things, but I am going to be able to do both things. And this was a wake-up call that I need to take, I need to take school a little bit more seriously, maybe prepare for my test better, but it doesn't have anything to do with my abilities as a student or as an athlete, and I'm going to do both. They were like, okay, I mean, one more and you're out, and I'm like, okay, one more and I'm out. And I never had any other issues.
I love that. That's
You-
awesome.
Well, not only
That's
did you not have issues, you crushed it.
I crushed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they hated me for
Of course.
it.
That's right, yeah.
Like, you proved me wrong.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's like so weird. Like you would think that they would, the support.
You would think that they would support you.
They
You
wanna
know, if
be-
you're
they
doing
wanna be
something
right.
out of the ordinary.
That's what's more important of. Yeah.
But
yeah.
they
Because you're an outlier. You
Well,
can't be an outlier.
I think they also didn't like that it wasn't your main priority. Like, she was already making more money through our business than she would have in PT. So she kind of she wanted to do it for her own personal learning, but not because she needed a PT job. And I don't think they like that because they were all, that's their whole life is PT.
So say that was December, and then Hybrid was born 6 months after that, and we were already I was already making more money than I would have made if I was in PT school. So at that point, I was checked out in the sense that I know I'm not gonna go like above and beyond for this degree. Like I'm gonna pass all my classes with B's and A's. Yeah. But like I'm not gonna do all the extra. I'm not gonna do all the brown nosing that everyone else has to do to like get a letter of recommendation or anything like that. So, and they felt it. But anyway, so that experience was kind of what opened my eyes to just the importance of staying in school, and like how easy I could get kicked out. Like, can you imagine that? Anything less than a 75?
Yeah, that's pressure.
And were you really close? I think you literally get 74 or 73 or something on that test.
74 I got.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, wasn't even,
So, I, at that point, I was like, I was stressed out about my status in school and wasn't enjoying training anymore. Yeah. Like I would go to the gym and be stressed out about leaving the gym. I would have terrible sessions, especially in a sport like weightlifting. That's like, dude, you're pulling this 100 or 200 pounds from the floor over your head. Like either you're there, or you're getting really hurt, or it's just not gonna go anywhere. Yeah, so that's when Hayden actually recommended or advised me to take a step back from weightlifting and start doing something that required a little bit less brain power, like powerlifting. Less technique, less focus. You can do it. A session is done in an hour and a half or 2 instead of 4.
And that's not a knock on powerlifting. No. Like there's obviously a huge mental component to powerlifting, but
there's all their struggles in powerlifting.
You can also still. You can have some days in powerlifting where you're not all there and you just get the work done. Like where you're not really dialed in and survive a training block. Whereas in weightlifting, it's like, if you have percentages to hit and snatch, you have to be sharp.
Why do you think that is, though?
I think just the technical aspect of it. Yeah. It's even the most professional weightlifters who go to the Olympics. You can be totally prepared for a meet. You can be at your strongest, and for some reason, you miss your opening snatch 3 times.
Dude, how many snatches do you think someone that's at the Olympics? How many snatches have they done? A million, 2 million? And then I don't know. And then you miss it. Yeah. That can happen to
Whereas,
anyone.
like if you bomb out in squat in powerlifting, you just made a really bad weight choice. Like you were, that was just your fault with selection.
That's funny because, like, now when you look at it from, like, a strength and conditioning standpoint, like, a lot of these guys are trying to, put together weightlifting programs for sport athletes. And what you're talking about, it takes a huge amount of technical aspect in there where they don't have that ability yet, or they probably don't have the prerequisites, the joint prerequisites to get underneath that load. So that's funny because you just basically stated that, again, it's very hard for a person that does weightlifting to keep doing it.
Yeah,
as opposed to a football player that can't even get under, that doesn't really even know how to squat properly. So it is a little bit easier to do more of the power lifts. Yeah, I won't say easier, simpler is a better term.
And your return on time investment is probably a lot better too. It's like, what's the opportunity cost of teaching an NFL player how to do snatch, and you have to push back all of his strength training by like 6 months while he acquires basic skills to do a snatch, where you could have been doing power clean or something that's a little more basic than that. But I think CrossFit made it so trendy that the Olympic lifts are just pushed on all strength coaches now. And it's like, if you don't do them, you're doing something wrong.
It's so silly, eh?
Well, I do like strongman. I do like strongman for other athletes. It's very simple to do, right? And have you done strongman yet? You do?
I mean, I do certain movements of strongman included in my program.
Carries and
yoke carries, farmer carries.
Yeah, it's fun to do.
Sometimes axle.
So, okay, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was just thinking about that. But you know what's funny is that Tisha Torres did the same thing. Now, Tisha kind of looks like you. She's a UFC
she
fighter.
does. Yeah.
And I showed her a video of you like pulling. That's when you hit your 500, I think. And we were teaching her how to sumo deadlift. I was like, the girl looks just like you. Like, literally just like you. If you look up Tisha Torres, UFC fighter, she's a 115-pounder, but, like, just jacked, you know? And I was like, she was going through the same issues, getting her master's in criminology, I believe, or something like that, criminal justice. But she was a UFC fighter. But she ended up being able to do that along with fighting at the highest level. I mean, she fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She fought a bunch of good girls. But yeah, that kind of reminds me. I have to hook you guys up too.
I would love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's good.
I have so much respect for people who can do it because I understand this struggle. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult.
Yeah, definitely.
But
I didn't mean to hijack your story
No,
there,
yeah.
but you were talking
So
about
the transition from Olympic weightlifting
to powerlifting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, and that's when Hybrid was born. Essentially, we started training that way. We both come from a very like old school coaching style when it came to Olympic weightlifting. So I was telling you I did 9 sessions a week, and 9 sessions had snatch and clean and jerk. And then the squats and deadlifts were used as accessory lifts, right? So snatch, clean, and jerk, your primary moves, and then squat and deadlift were secondary. And we started pretty much doing the opposite. Just at that point, it was just because of what interests us and the time availability, right? So we started doing squat, bench, and deadlift as our primary exercises, and using snatch and clean and jerk as skill or accessory exercises.
Gotcha.
And we started seeing such a huge improvement in our snatch, clean, and jerk just from getting stronger. And that's kind of where the rabbit hole that we started getting into of like how important just having a strong baseline of strength is for any sport, and how underrated it is in every single sport. Like we were just talking about boxing.
Well, that's how I started. I had a strength and conditioning coach when I was 21 years old, and he trained football players. So he didn't really know how to strength train because boxing's old school. They didn't really, highlight that kind of thing. Like if you can't be in the weight room, you get slow. But that's how I started with Olympic lifting, and I loved it. And I was like, man, after boxing, like I want an Olympic lift. I was doing snatches and I was doing all of it, and it was great for my power, and I was strong, and just building and understanding even mobility. I absolutely loved it. And then coming here, what we do now, I just understand. I think that's when I understood the importance of strength training and how to apply it to boxing. And I realized how important it really is. And that helped me to get to where I am now and understand that, and then meet Phil. So, yeah.
What was an interesting realization that we had, like switching that around, was that people, or a lot of strength coaches, or even Olympic weightlifting coaches in the States, the mentality, or CrossFit actually especially, they treat snatch and clean and jerk as if those are general strength movements. Like they're doing snatch to get stronger. Whereas the way that we started looking at it was, if the sport is weightlifting, that's the skilled aspect. And the strength training, squat, bench, and deadlift, that's the backbone of it, right? So it's like, to go back to football, it's like you wouldn't load guys head to toe in weights and then have them play football and be like, that's how you're going to get stronger, right? You do your strength training in the gym, and then you go practice the skill on the field.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then that was sort of the approach that we brought to Olympic weightlifting, which was pretty novel in not in like eastern parts of like Eastern Europe and all those countries. They've been training that way for quite some time, but here it was lost on a lot of Olympic weightlifting coaches and CrossFit coaches. So I think that's why we got some attention really early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of pushback as well at the beginning.
Yeah, people who just thought you had to do snatch and clean and jerk every day, because that's what weightlifting coaches teach here. But it's like, if you're a professional in snatch and clean and jerk, there's a requisite amount of ability you need to have, and then after that, it's like, you know how to do it. You don't have to reteach yourself how to learn to ride a bike every time you get on a bike.
Yeah.
Right? That's not your.
You
that doesn't
already know
put
how
your
to
focus
snatch,
anymore.
clean, and jerk.
Yeah.
The difference is going to be in terms of strength. But like you said, how some people think that they're going to get slower if they lift a lower weight. I think everything it's the law of diminishing returns. Obviously there's going to come a point where you don't need more strength, right? Like you have the kind of baseline level of strength that you need in order to perform the best at your sport, and that's it. Like any more, and then you start seeing interference, right? Which I've experienced both. So initially, when adding more strength training into my Olympic weightlifting and treating the Olympic lifts as the skill or the practice, I think my snatch went up, I don't know, like 10 kilos at least, and I was already like an advanced lifter, so that's significant. 10 kilos in my snatch, and like 15 kilos in my clean, and 12 kilos in my clean and jerk, which was crazy. And then as I kept on going, I almost like regressed a little bit, because I started, my movement changed in, say, the initial positions of the snatch or the clean, because I was practicing so much, say, conventional deadlifting or sumo deadlift or low bar squat, that my certain muscles that I use in powerlifting started getting so much stronger that they started impacting the movement in the snatch, clean, and jerk.
Was it a fact of like you just gaining more hypertrophy too and changing up the leverages?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So a combination of things. So, I mean, just keep it in mind, like, you know, it's not that you always need to keep pushing the strength, but you need a baseline level in order for you to be able to perform your best in whatever sport you're.
And that baseline, I think, in other strength sports, it's a lot higher than people think.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many weightlifters in you know, Canada and the U.S. who, it's the way I used to be. You know, your clean will be, you know, say it's 400 pounds, and your max front squat is 405. You know, and you're beating yourself up all the time trying to do these heavy lifts with you know, not a lot of strength surplus.
And to me, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you should have a way higher front squat.
I actually knew guys who could clean more than they could front squat.
That's
just being like using the spring and not having to do the eccentric part of the squat. They were able to just like bounce out of the hole really hard and catch cleans.
Well, there's not a whole lot of eccentric loading in Olympic lifting.
No.
Or at least the ones that are doing the traditional Olympic lifting training.
Yeah, no. Yeah, they rely so much on that spring, it's almost painful to watch. Have you seen them? Seriously, their knees are like freaking just bands.
Is that in America or is that more like worldwide?
If you look at other countries like the ones that are really successful in weightlifting, there's obviously a component of PED use and that being accepted, but it doesn't change the fact that their strength numbers are so high relative to their snatch and clean and jerk. It's like the Chinese lifters, super, super strong. Like those guys, you see really, really like 69 kilo lifters who are squatting like over 300 kilos, you know, which is unheard of here in the States or in Canada, you know. Russia, Ukraine, like a lot of those Eastern Bloc countries are the same way.
Yeah.
The best 58 kilo lifter who actually, she got popped, but she could front squat, I think, over 200 kilos.
Damn.
At 58.
Wow.
With sleeves.
440?
Yeah.
Front squat.
That's crazy.
Like, there's guys, most guys can't
What's
do
her
that.
weight? What's her weight?
58.
Oh, man. She's little, too.
Yeah, that's a little.
Damn. All right, well, let's get back to the powerlifting. Because that shit just hurts my joints just thinking about it. I don't think I've done a clean. No, actually, we did with the axle. That's a little different. So I was doing I was doing axle clean presses. Just being me and just kind of doing dumb shit at this point. When you're like retired, like you just kind of like find shit to do. So at this point, like, when I was fighting, I did a lot of strongman. I did a lot. That's how I kind of developed my system, how I train these guys now. But like I never did a whole lot of Olympic lifting just because my joints just ached from training. When you're in MMA, you're getting punched and kicked on a daily basis. Same thing with them. So with that, I have to make sure that we can coordinate the specific means of what we're going to do. It's going to have high correlation, but not beat them up in the weight room.
Of course.
And so that was the main thing. Now I'm looking at hybrid. Like, is it more of your method, or is it kind of just like how you go about training and in general? Or the gym too as well is called hybrid, right? Correct?
Yeah. Our entire brand is called hybrid.
Nice. So like, all right, so now you build a business, right? The gym's doing well at this point, and you got the online stuff, right? So how was the transition from just kind of building that business on the gym brick and mortar side now going into the other aspects of your business like you were talking about?
Yeah, so we actually did it kind of reversed. So we started with the online.
Gotcha.
I had some experience with that in the past because I ran an online business prior to hybrid that I sold. And Stefi and I, you know, like we said, it was pretty organic how it started. It was just us. We were weightlifters who transitioned to powerlifting, and we still kind of did both. And we competed in a super total meet, and we both did really well. We actually won that meet. And, you know, did basically we're just combining a bunch of different things, and people noticed, and it's a difficult thing to do. So they started asking questions. Every time we would post, people would say, how are you doing?
It wasn't just combining, it was like being actually good.
At both of them,
At both, yeah.
So people would always say, you know, how are you doing powerlifting and weightlifting and making progress? And it just got to the point where...
And also looking sexy as fuck.
Of course.
So, yeah, we just got enough
I like
questions.
this one, by the way, man.
Yeah, so enough people asked that we were like, I think there's something here.
Yeah.
And then we built a software. We hired a software engineer to build a website for us to distribute the programming online.
Sorry, can I add something?
Yep.
So that was around the time where I think the online programming started existing. More people started getting into it. And because of that, I think a lot of people were still unsure of of whether or not it's profitable. So a lot of people were going into existing platforms, using platforms like Train Heroic or other existing softwares, or even just like using email and Excel sheets. So we saw that as an opportunity to, since he had some capital from his previous business that he sold his shares on, we saw the opportunity of using that as a differentiating factor and positioning ourselves as, professionals in the industry and having a system that looks good and that was different to what other people were doing.
Yeah. So we're like, let's see if we can get a few people to beta test the software and the program. We'll give them a really good rate. I think we charge like $15, and we just put it on our social media, which we didn't have big following on at the
was
time.
famous. He had 10,000 followers.
That was good for back then.
Yeah, that swipe up. That's it. We were ready to
This
go.
was before, Swipe Up didn't even exist back then. I don't think.
Oh, damn.
But and you had, I don't know how many did you have?
3,000.
3,000 or something. But we pushed it out on social media. Like we're looking for let's see if we can get 10 or 15 people to test this out. And then we woke up like the next morning and had 400 plus people apply for it. Wow. So
What do you think was the major contributor to getting that out there?
I think that a lot of people have what we call training ADD, where especially in the CrossFit space, which was like the dominating sort of demographic that had money to spend on fitness at that time. Yeah. So it was our followings on social media, even though they weren't huge at the time. I think a lot of it was just CrossFitters who were interested in weightlifting, CrossFitters who were interested in powerlifting, strongman, etc. So, and it was novel what we were doing. Nobody was offering that same sort of offering that we were. So we chose 100 people, which was a lot more than we had expected at the time, but it was great because those people we brought on with them knowing that they were beta testing the software. So they found a lot of the problems early on.
Gotcha.
Basically, they were paying us to sort of work out all our issues in the software. And sort of also a way to, a lot of times you write something down in programming and you think because you have an understanding of weightlifting or powerlifting that it makes perfect sense. But to a regular person who doesn't have a lot of exposure, it can look like a totally different language to them, right? So it helped us sort of for lack of a better term, idiot-proof all of the stuff that we wrote, So that was a huge learning experience for us. And then from there, we just started adding in every time we would get enough. We didn't ever really said what enough was, but whenever we got a bunch of inquiries about a certain type of training, it was something outside of our scope, we'd hire a coach to write and monitor that program. So it grew from just one, which was our hybrid performance program. That was the first one, to we have 17 now across all the different disciplines. So weightlifting, strongman, gymnastics. That we don't.
MMA, bro.
Not yet.
Saying.
But and then you want to take it from there after training?
What was the question?
Just how we got kind of grew into the businesses.
Yeah, and I still remember, we have a memory box, and there's a card that I wrote for him when we first made, I think it was $2,000, and we were celebrating. And it's just so funny to look back at that and just how excited we were about the growth of the business. And I think to answer your question about why do we think that it grew and that the word was out there about us and the business, I honestly think that it has to do also with being living proof of what we're selling and being authentic and genuine and really believing in what we're doing, right? Because it was genuinely how we trained. It's similar to you, man. That's why you're attracting so many people. It's because you really believe in this shit and you're passionate about it, and people can sense that. People can sense when you're shit.
The athletes can sense it. I mean, that was a big thing that I was drawn to with him when I first met him. I was introduced to him, and I was out here, and then we met. It was the authenticity and the focus and and the explanation. Because I've learned so much from him, just understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing, and just the way that he talks. And so it's I'm getting training, but I'm also getting knowledge. Yeah, and that's that's huge.
Absolutely.
But it's definitely that's definitely a big part of it, because people can sense it. The athletes that you work with can sense it, and that's what keeps them around.
Absolutely.
It's funny, when we first met, she was like, "I'm going to ask you a lot of questions." I was like, "Okay." She was not lying. Every 2 seconds. But I was like, I like that though, because it showed me that she cared about what she's trying to do. A lot of guys just kind of shut up, just tell me what to do. And that really depends on the personality. I think, but when you're working with athletes in this nature, especially with combat sports, they're so in their head, and a lot of it's 90% mental. So giving that that ability or giving that feedback to what they're doing is actually working, not just from a data perspective, like a metrics, but also just giving them that feedback, vocally is really good too as well.
But I think like coming from where I came from, which was, I tried out, like I said, I've tried everything with my boxing, and I was doing a lot of snatches, and it was affecting my shoulders and things like that. And my manager was coming, I fought for a world title, and my shoulder was just shot, and that's the kind of workouts that I was doing. And he's like, I didn't think you should be doing that. I'm like, hey, look, I know I need to get stronger, so what am I supposed to do? So it was actually like finding somebody like a Phil, you know what I mean, to know how to apply it. So I think that was coming in. I was more I had more skepticism, I think, and more like, all right, I'm going to ask because
we spoke for like 3 hours.
Oh yeah. It was a long time because I was like, all right, because I knew I had a background, but I didn't really understand how to apply it or who was going to be the person. And still, until he was, but that was the big part of it, was the authenticity and the honesty. And it was like, okay, whatever you want to hear. And you can sense that. And then going to the training, that's when the trust is built. And that's huge between obviously trainer and athlete. Especially I was a veteran, I was coming in already a veteran, actually coming off an injury where I was told I'd never box again. So, I mean, talk about, I had just a lot of chips on my shoulder coming into this, like, all right, I'm either going to do it or not, but that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, part of just being living proof of what you're selling, and actually being able to prove what you're the programs backing up what you're saying essentially. So that grew fairly fast. I don't know how
your social media bumped up quick then.
Mine too. Yeah, I started competing in powerlifting, getting a lot more exposure, and we did a lot for that. Like I think that's something that people don't see. Like people think that just comes to you, but man, we hustled like that. That first year or two of
flying every weekend.
I was full time in school, and every other weekend or every weekend we would be somewhere else, just meeting people,
collaborating and just
not even like just really trying to build a real relationship with someone. Like I think that's a mistake that a lot of influencers make nowadays. Is like they come in through your office with like pointing their camera at you, and it's like just so obvious that you want something from them. Which, look, I'm not hiding. Like, obviously, I think in every interaction that you have, like, there's a reason why. Even, like, in a relationship, right? Like,
even a friendship.
There's got to be benefits on both parts, of course.
It always is like that.
It's a partnership.
I don't like thinking, like, I'm using people.
It's a give and take.
Every relationship is a give and take.
100%.
But I think just, like, making sure that your intention of meeting someone is not only for the money.
Course.
Like the approach that I took, at least, is like I'm curious of like how you got here. Like genuinely curious, because I think there's something to learn from everybody.
100%.
So Mark Bell's a perfect example, because he was one of the first people that really opened his doors to us, even though we were nobody at that time. And we just came into his office, and I just started asking him questions about how he built Slingshot, what led him to want to pursue that, what was he afraid of, just like really genuine questions. And that strengthened the bonds and the relationships that we were able to form early on. And that became sort of like mentorships, and that opened the doors for so many other connections and so many other opportunities. So, I think that was part of it as well, just like the hustle and making sure that people knew who we were, like that we were memorable. I always joke about this because it's a Chris D'Elia joke that I love. But when someone asks you like, "Oh, hey Phil, like my name's Steph, like do you remember me?" and you have no idea. So when that happens to me, I'm like, no.
Yeah,
no,
you're honest. Yeah.
Make yourself memorable.
Yes, and transparency, like being transparent, being like, oh yeah, all of that stuff. Yeah,
I've been there now more so because of like with everything increasing now. Like I got stopped the other day in the gas station. And I swear to you, I don't know this dude. And he was like, "No, I'm just kidding. You don't know me." I was like,
"Oh no, you're like, but that's possible, yeah, right?"
So at least I was honest. I was like, "Nah, man, I don't."
Yeah,
like, "Nah, you don't know me." But I've been watching you. I was like, "Okay, good."
But based on those interactions that I've had, I make sure that I make myself memorable when I meet other people.
For sure,
whether that's like through connecting on some sort of like deeper level.
Oh yeah,
like trying to get past that superficial conversation, or afterwards you do a follow-up. Like I think this is something that it's social skills 101. Do a follow-up. Hey Phil, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Like I really appreciate it. I admire this about you. Okay, bye. See you later. And then a few months later you check back in. Hey, how's your business doing? Or whatever. That's social skills 101 that I think that it's missed on a lot of people. And maybe it's like the professional aspect of this sort of relationship building within the fitness space that some people are just not catching on to.
I think people overvalue like exposure and likes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And follows and all the things that you can get immediately. You know, right? If I stick a camera
Yes.
and money that you're getting
Yep.
off of that too. You know, you can walk in the door and stick a camera in your face and then put your name in the title of a video, and you'll get a certain amount of likes based on that. But how long term is that? And did you really create a valuable relationship or connection with that person? No. So it's like people are just so willing to trade off like all the long-term gain of having all these interactions and relationships within the industry for like this immediate spike in views on their content.
And that was like, that's the reason why I started the podcast, to be honest with you, because I wanted to talk to the people that I was interested in. You know what I'm saying? And then create a relationship based off of that. It wasn't more so just like, all right, I'm just going to do a podcast because it's hot. You know what I mean? It was more like, man, I just want to talk to these, you know, these individuals that I look at and I'm like, damn, they're killing it. So that was the one thing, and that's why I set up who I bring on. You know what I mean? And that was the one, like, I've been watching you for a while. I think, I don't remember where, but when I got into powerlifting and I started really getting into, I was like watching you sumo dead. I was like, man, this shit's perfect. I was like, man, I gotta get with that. So then I was like, all right, perfect. Let me start to figure it out. And I watch and I sit back and watch for a while until I make that decision to talk to that person.
Yeah, the podcast is the perfect opportunity to talk to someone. But yeah, I mean, and just to give you an example, now that we're talking about Mark Bell, you know, we went over to Mark Bell's a bunch of times, started sending me product, started using the product, they started posting me, and then someone close to me was like, yo, they need to like give you some bread, you know, like they gotta pay for that because now you have 100,000 followers or whatever, and now they better pay you for endorsing his products. And I was like, nah, man, like I'm not interested in that. Because I'm more interested in supporting a friend. Yeah. Like that's a person who opened their doors to me, and I don't care about whether he pays me 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. I don't care about that. I care about his friendship and the opportunities that friendship might bring. And it was one of those.
That's so rare. That's so rare, and I feel the same way. And that's just like, you know, that's such respect to you for that, because that's the first thing that people look for, you know, and that's just But that's how you value the relationships. And people don't understand. I feel like that's getting lost. Going back to what you're saying with the likes and everything, even in boxing, you know, and how genuine is the information or how real is the information that's being provided. I see a lot of people following different athletes or different coaches, and I'm like, and they have all these followers, so they automatically think, oh, what they're saying is true. That's truth, and I'm like, that's not really true, you know.
That was one thing that I didn't want to get to. Like, I didn't want to get too big, but like I didn't want people to think that just because of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and the narrative of it looks successful because of how many followers I have. I want to be successful for the successes I have with the fighters or with the athletes that I'm training. So at the end of the day, if it brings more people to whatever my social media platforms because I'm putting out quality content and I'm actually getting the results that I want to with my athletes, then I can take that. But I'm not going to take it if I'm not authentic.
But how much more difficult is that than posting like viral exercises, videos, like just doing a stupid exercise that gets a ton with your shirt off?
Yep.
Like it's a lot harder to build a following using like genuinely correct
For sure.
knowledge and
I've been doing this shit for like 11
information.
years, and I'm about to hit 100,000.
Yeah.
But everything that I put out is authentic, like 100%. Is what I do with my athletes. I'm not lying. So when you come here, like my interns that come in, they're like, oh yeah, this is the same thing we've learned watching your Instagram or something like that. So I'm not gonna fake it, you know.
But it's a lot harder.
Yeah, like even people tell me, like, you know, some of the influencers will tell me, like, you need to do this. I'm like, bro, I'm not doing that shit.
But he's authentic to himself. Like, he owns his truth. But I want to hijack your podcast for a second. I just want to go. I just want to go into why I started following you. And again, for me, I don't have the background that Phil has, but for me, it was just connecting with a female that I respect you so much, you know, for what you've done in your education. I can relate to that. I can relate to the pressures and coming into a sport as a woman and still being unapologetically, authentically yourself. And I think that's something that I really pride myself on. So it was just so nice to connect with a woman. And I told Phil when he told me you were coming in, I'm like, I'm going to have a fangirl moment. And I'm not a fan of many people. I'm just not, you know, but following you, I'm not, you know, I'm just like, but following your story and hearing your story, how you came from Venezuela with your mom, you know, and the way that you guys, the struggles that you had and everything you did. And what about when you were in college and you built in the home gym, like you found a way. Like I was like, man, I connected with, I look at your lifts and I'm like, damn, that's amazing. But at the same time, I'm looking at the humanistic part of it where it's just like, this is real life, you know, and what you did to get to those lifts and do what you did. So for me, that was what really drew me to you, you know, and that's why, like, anybody listening, like, just check it out for that. There's so much more to it because you're a human, you know, and you're sharing, you're so vulnerable, and even the other podcast interviews that you've done. So as from woman to woman, I just want to say thank you for that because it's inspired me, and even yesterday I had a really good lift.
Yeah.
You know, I had my
story. It was on Instagram.
Yeah, he didn't tag me though, but it's alright. We won't talk about that.
I'm sorry.
No, but I'm all, you know.
She was like, you didn't post it. I was like, I was coaching. Like, what do you want me to do? Like,
but it was huge. It was like a 35-pound PR for me. You know what I mean? And for me, it was just like, you know, it's.
I'm on her side, by the way.
Is it? Thank you. But it was inspirational.
That's why I got hated. That's it.
It was inspirational for me, and I'm not going to say that I did that moment, and seeing stuff that you post doesn't motivate me for my lifts. You know, even just as an athlete. You know, so thank you for that.
I was like, we got a long way when we catch Stefi, but we're gonna be all right.
We need to exchange information.
For sure.
I'll coach you in strength. You'll coach me in boxing.
Oh, that's it. That's it. Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, but back to what you were saying about the struggles. It's true. Like, and especially in what we were saying before is obscure sports for females, like powerlifting, like boxing, even like back when you started. It's like, it's so much harder to succeed when all the odds are against you and where there's no support system, no places for you to actually train, no one who wants to push you. People like don't understand why you're doing what you're doing. I mean, I remember my mom was like, when I started getting to powerlifting, she was like, when is it gonna stop? Like, when are you gonna stop trying to lift more? And I'm like, never, Mom.
Yep.
Like, that never ends.
That was me too with the same boxing.
Well, how much bigger? And I'm like, as big as I can get, Mom.
You know, go big or go home, right? I love it. Yep.
But yeah, it's hard. It's hard when it's just something that's totally uncommon and that people don't understand and that there's no kind of like paved way for a woman.
You got to figure it out.
You have to figure it out. And yeah, that's where that story goes of me just getting into my small little apartment in college and being like, okay, I mean, I have to study for 8 hours a day. I guess it's either I build a gym here on the second floor of this tiny apartment, take out the TV, the couch, and everything that provides me with enjoyment and entertainment, and just substitute it with this thing that inflicts a lot of pain on me, but makes me feel good for some reason.
Yeah, I always say the ones that like at the highest level, they enjoy a little bit of pain. So
and we're not afraid of it. You know what I mean? It's the risk takers. You know, the calculator risk, but it's the risk taking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Where were we? Hybrid. Yeah. So we built the online platform, grew really exponentially fast. Every month, was significantly better than the previous one, and we quickly realized that there was a definite market there for what we were doing, and we saw ways of continuing scaling it and continue adding value, and we saw kind of initially at the beginning, I actually didn't believe that we could make any money doing that.
When I pitched the idea to her, I was like, I think this is what we should do. She's like, I don't see it working. I just don't get it. Why would somebody follow our program?
Yeah, why would someone want to get training from me?
I was like, just trust me on this one. You or me?
Yeah, I know.
Do you think because of the fact that you were obviously you said that the tried and proven techniques worked, you think because of the fact you were hitting those PRs, you were hitting those world records, that's why it helped?
It helped.
It helped a lot, but the business was growing really fast before you had even broken a world record.
Yeah, you don't have to be the best in your sport in order to get notoriety. You have to provide people with a good service, with a good system, and you have to be professional, and you have to make sure that people know who you are. It's a combination of things, but I mean, I get that question a lot, do you have to be the best in your sport to be a respectable coach or to have a respectable business? And I don't think that's the case.
I think it makes it easier because as a coach, you need to show proof of concept. And, if ideally you have both coach and proof of concept in one person, which is Stefi. So that was great for us. But to people who are out there trying to start businesses that are similar, if Stefi wasn't the proof of concept and she was just an awesome coach, then the next step would be finding an athlete who you can coach who will be your proof of concept.
Exactly.
So I don't think it's it's a hard stop if you're not a good power lifter, if you're not a good weightlifter or whatever you're trying to coach. But it makes it easier.
Yeah. So then, in terms of business, we started building pretty much every year. We would build a different vertical. So a lot of that has to do with. He is really good at living in the present, and I'm really bad at it. I live more in the future. Like, I'm the type of person that needs to know kind of what the next step is going to be. And I think that combination is really good. You know, you need a fine balance between the two. Someone to keep you grounded, and then someone to predict what kind of issues you might run into and what kind of things you can do to continuously grow. So, you know, we've done a really good job at continuously building on top of the previous year, on top of the previous business, and continue growing different verticals so that we don't have to rely on one particular thing. And it's been awesome. So we started the training business first, then we added on nutrition coaching about a year and a half later. Then we added on the gym, and then we added on apparel. So I think we've been in business for 4 years, right? And that's 4 verticals.
Yeah, so you're scaling based
That's
upon
great.
the different types of markets that you can work with.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
By treating every single one of those ventures with the same respect and with the same like focus and intensity.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I could see it now, like as far as the business goes, you can see that you've grown exponentially. So it's really good. I got a couple of questions from Instagram. I got not a couple, I got a fucking lot. But I'm not gonna do all of them, but we'll hit some. These names are amazing, dude, by the way. It's Instagram names. So first one is QuackFacts _ Should athletes utilize belts when they're lifting weights?
So it depends. That's how my answers for every question start. If you are a person who's trying to compete in a strength sport, so you want to maximize the amount of weight that you can lift, I think for the most part, people can benefit from using a belt. There's always those outliers that get weaker with a belt on. I mean, Yuri Belkin doesn't use a belt, and the guy deadlifts close to 1,000 pounds.
Really?
Has he hit 1,000 pounds?
He's strong as shit.
No. But yeah.
He doesn't lift with a belt?
970.
No.
970.
Wow.
Yuri Belkin lifts beltless, and there's a.
Well, he does sumo too. What about squatting?
Does
Squats with
he-
no belt?
Does he use a belt? No belt for
Oh, that's
squat.
fucking amazing.
Yeah, and there's a couple guys like that. Who's the other guy that lifts over 1,000 pounds beltless?
It
Russian
was
dude.
Constantine.
Constantino.
He died,
Constantino.
but
Yeah.
he,
So, but I mean, that's 2 people, right? I think like for the most part, most world records are broken with a belt, and that's because it provides a clear performance advantage to wear one. I think a lot of people get caught on that like dependency dilemma. Oh, am I gonna wear a belt? Am I gonna make my abs weaker? Am I gonna start depending on it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're gonna start depending on it to lift heavy weights, but it's not like your core is gonna get weaker from using it. So I think
It's just a tactile cue, in my opinion. Like really for intra-abdominal pressure.
and like safety, like
Yeah.
in your mind,
yeah.
in your
okay,
mind.
yeah, for sure.
emotional
Like
connection.
you think it's
Yep.
protecting you, and that alone can increase your
Yeah,
like
sure.
your
Yep.
strength. So placebo or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're serious about lifting weights, I think you should, and if you have a goal in mind or you're competing, I think you should give it a shot, see if it helps you. And if not, I mean, you can or you.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean wear it for your bicep curls and everything else you're doing, but for
If
your
you're a bodybuilder,
like,
put that
80%
shit on.
plus lifts.
Nick.
You know?
Exactly.
Fucking wear a body. Where's his damn belt when he's doing damn side raises and shit?
And it can,
15s and shit, just fucking smashing it.
and it could all be balanced out. So if you're a person who does tend to use a belt even for lower percentages, you can find ways to strengthen the muscles that the belt is acting as. So your external abdominal obliques, like you can do exercises to target those muscles outside of your main lifts. So I think like that's where it goes wrong for most people is like they don't want to wear the belt because they don't want those muscles to be weak, but they forget that they can make those muscles strong using other exercises that are less risky and that are specifically designed to strengthen those particular areas. And then you can maximize using the belt for lifting as much weight as you can.
Exactly. Get the stimulus.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay. Got that? Quack facts? All right. Appreciate your question. Okay. Elaine says, hey, Steffi. Like she was talking to you through me. That's awesome.
Elaine.
Hey, Steffi.
What's up?
Do you think it's possible to be successful in both powerlifting and boxing? We're going to find out.
Yeah, I guess we're going to find out. Look, I think that it depends on what your definition of success is. you know, can you be at the top of both sports at the same time? Like, can you be the best at both? I honestly don't think so. I think that's very challenging, and I lived it through Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting. I thought I could. But like I said, there's diminishing returns always. Like, there's going to be a time where you're going to have to, there's going to be a what do you call it? A fork block?
Fork in the road.
Fork in the road, where you're going to have to decide what you want to take more seriously. Now, can you be a really good power lifter and a top level boxer? Yeah, and vice versa. But I don't think you can be the best at both.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it comes a point where one interferes with the other. Like, if you, dude, and I'm telling you, when I'm at the top of powerlifting, like I'm preparing for a meet, I'm peaking for a meet, or I'm at meet day, that's the most fit I am in terms of powerlifting and the least fit I am as a human. So I'm telling you, like, I can barely go up and downstairs without losing my breath.
But you look shredded and jacked.
I look shredded, jacked, but I can, my back hurts when I tie my shoes and like rolling or like being in a, forget about it. So, yeah, I don't think you can do both at the same time at the highest level, but you can definitely be average at both or good at both.
Gotcha. All right, there you go. Tim Alcorn, this is actually a regular name. This is awesome. Are you going to keep training boxing, kickboxing, and does it take a toll on your powerlifting when you do it?
I think that all depends on the frequency that I add those sessions and as well as the intensity. I think that I am not kickboxing, but I am going to keep training boxing because I really like it. And we'll see how that interferes. I honestly don't foresee it interfering that much if I only add maybe like 2 or 3 sessions a week. Yeah. And it all depends on like what you're doing in those sessions and how long you're training. Obviously, I'm not in the intensity. Like, I'm not gonna do 3 sessions of 3 hours long sparring.
No. Well, no, and you can self-regulate too. You know, when you're throwing your punches, like learning the proper technique. You know, like when we work together, you know, throwing the technique and showing you all that, and then you can kind of self-regulate yourself too to know where you're at.
Like you don't have to punch as hard as you can every time.
No, it's about you don't, and that's the point in boxing. Like you're gonna see how you can use your strengths to help you actually throw harder in boxing through the technique. You know, it's a lot of hips. I'm excited to work with you because that's gonna be it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I guess I haven't thought of it that way, but when you're training for powerlifting, you're not always going to 100% in every lift, right? I think same in boxing.
Absolutely,
like you can find a way to use to
rhythm,
technique, strategy, watching boxing, whatever it is.
Movement. In movement too. So like I know when I'm taking a break, like I'm moving around the ring, you know, when I'm calculating, I'm planning. You know, there's so much.
So again, it comes down to periodization. Like when are you going to add those sessions, to what intensity, what frequency, and making sure that during those weeks that you're peaking, you're maybe like decreasing your frequency and intensity of boxing and so on. So I think with like smart periodization, you can do anything.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you want to do just boxing, kickboxing, or MMA?
Boxing.
Just boxing. You don't want to play the kicks?
I'm a bigger fan now.
Bro,
listen, I can teach you how to just blast double and then get an arm bar real quick. You can do it on Hayden. It'd be awesome.
Here's the thing. I don't want I don't want people to do that to me.
Oh, that makes sense. Getting kicked in the face sucks, by the way.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go into MMA.
Like,
I'm like, you're not putting me in the arm bar. You're not choking me out.
Elbows and knees, that shit's a whole different story.
You hit your shin on a table?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's me. I was deadlifting. When I deadlift and the bar hits my shin, I'm like, oh.
No, the reason I'm not throwing a kick is not because I don't want to inflict pain on someone else, because that's going to hurt the shit out of me. Like, hey, I don't want to do that.
I still got bruises.
Yo, one time we took a Muay Thai class with, was it Aaron?
Aaron, yeah.
Yeah, and he, like, it was slow motion. Like, he kicked my IT band in slow motion, and I was on the floor.
Yeah.
You know?
And it wasn't even hard. It's just like that flip. Yeah. And you're like, they did that to me too.
I had a world champion Muay Thai guy come into the gym, and Mo Kimo. He's like, Coach, take a kick from him. I'm like, bro, I don't want to do this shit. He's like, no, do it. So he's like, don't be a bitch. I'm like, oh, you motherfucker.
That's it.
So I was like, all right. And he fucking just tapped it. I was
It's a technique.
I'm fine.
Couldn't even fucking breathe for like at least 30 seconds. I was like, damn, this sucks.
Yeah, no, that's a hard pass for me. Right?
But it's the same thing with a punch. So, you know, when you know how to turn your body and use your weight into a punch, and it's like, I was playing around with one of my girls this morning. I said, okay, how does this feel? She's like, oh, that's not bad. I said, okay, how does this feel? And she's like, oh, there's a big difference. I said, okay, the importance of technique. Yeah. And knowing how to use the force.
Fluidity is important. You know? Just having the ability to have mobility, like just fluidity in your punches. One, it's going to keep your conditioning up. Like in general, when you're loose and you're able to snap your punches, you're gonna have better power, you have better endurance. You know, and that's the one
100%.
with her. She's super fluent. So like even when she moves, everything is just calculated. You can see that she's been doing it for a long time.
Do you dance?
Do I dance?
Salsa?
I mean, of course.
Okay. I dance
Obviously.
salsa, but I dance salsa, and it helped me with my boxing.
Of course.
I
can see
competed
that.
and everything. So if you know how to dance, oh yeah, it's the footwork that I do. I'll use the slip bag and I'll just start moving, and I'll do salsa moves to the slip bag, and then when I fight, I
love
dance.
that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
because it's a rhythm.
That's the hardest part about transitioning from powerlifting into boxing is, dude, we're so stiff.
Yeah.
We spent
Yeah,
our
it's
entire
for-
lives training to be stiff.
For
On
8
purpose.
years, I've been making myself as stiff as a board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now you're telling me to be loose. Like this is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
funniest
I can
thing with
imagine.
our coach with Kareem. He's always like, be loose, but be strong, but be loose, but you know, but the elbow. And I'm like, bro, I don't know. Like it's either one or the other.
Yeah.
Either I'm like,
Yeah.
or I'm like,
Yeah. That's great.
I don't have the middle ground.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the main thing is just to be able to be loose and then be strong at the end range.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he says.
And that's the
Don't get it,
technique. That's where the technique comes in.
You snap
Yeah.
the end of the punch. All right, next one. All right, very fried. It's awesome.
yeah. I like that.
Okay, why is my, I don't know how this is, but why is my close grip bench better than my competition bench? And I'm not a fat lifter. In fact, I compete at 56 kilos. So why? He says, why?
Because probably it's the movement that you practice the most.
Mhm.
You'll get stronger. It's like, how do you measure strength? Well, you measure strength based on the movement that you're trying to be strong at, right? Like it's totally arbitrary. Like you want to see how strong you are in bench, then you're gonna train bench in that particular way, and that's what you're gonna be testing. So if you're training yourself in the in the close grip, then that's what you're gonna be strongest. And you're not gonna be able to see how strong you are in wide grip if you never train it, and it's gonna require like progressive exposure to that range in order for you to gain strength in that new range. It's not, and potentially that guy potentially could be stronger in a wider grip, but you have to practice it for months and not give up on that position, because it's not going to happen from the night to the morning. Like if you open your grip 5 fingers to the sides, that's going to take you a couple of months to be able to build strength in that range.
There's also a lot of pre-powerlifting exercise and activity that can affect what you're good at when you go into powerlifting. You know, if you're a guy who started training with bodyweight and all you did was like military style push-ups for 3 years, you know, and you're doing tricep extension and you're not really doing anything that's training you in that position, you know, or maybe you learned bench from somebody who didn't teach you how to retract your scapulas and you're stuck in this position when you're benching. Those are all things that can affect it.
But it always comes down to preparedness and exposure to a particular range and a particular movement.
Knowing your strengths and knowing your weak spots in that range. It might just be that he just might be good at just using that for his competition bench.
Exactly.
And you might also want to just slowly move the grip out. You know, you don't want to go from you're really strong in this close grip to like going
Super
out as wide as you can.
Yeah.
That was something for me that was an issue. I trained when we were playing hockey. Our coaches were always like, "You don't push somebody from out here. You push them from in here."
Yeah.
You know, so we all did bench like in here, and I got really strong like that.
Same
And
for me in weightlifting. When Camilo would have me bench, it would be like really close.
So it took me a long time of slowly, just like one finger at a time, moving it out, doing a few weeks like that, until I got to where my competition bench is now.
It took me a full year to go from right next to my body to all the way out on the rings. Took me a full year to get out there, and like really strong. And I ended up doing, I think my best has been 225 for 7 on a wide grip.
What's your max bench right now?
243 for 3.
For 3, yeah.
Yeah, 243 for 3.
So what do you think is stronger, your close grip or your wide now?
Wide,
Yeah.
like 1,000%. Yeah, but it took a year.
All right, next question. Sauna. That's a good one, I guess.
That's the question?
No, sauna. No, that's literally the name.
Oh, okay.
What are your top 3 favorite cheat meals?
I hate the word cheat meal.
I hear you.
You know, it's like an immediate trigger.
Yeah.
And
my boy, what, damn, I forgot his name now. It's not my boy now. Mike Dolce. He calls them earned meals.
Earned
He was weight
meals.
cutting for all the UFC guys.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot more. I think if you're thinking about cheat meals, you know nothing about dieting. You know, honestly, like you have the wrong approach. Because if you're thinking that you're cheating when you're eating a food, you're immediately in your brain it's a banned meal, or it's
You failed in some way.
you're
that's
failing
true.
in some way. So I think that's just like the wrong name to give it. But I understand where the thought process is coming from.
Just what's your favorite dirty meal?
Yeah. Or if you're gonna not eat your meal preps, like what are you gonna choose?
Not the diet food, I guess.
Yeah.
Top 3, that's a question?
Fireman Derek,
Damn, what we
carrot
had
cake.
yesterday at midnight.
Shit.
And mac and
Those
cheese.
meals are always interesting.
Mac and cheese grilled cheese sandwich
Oh, wow.
With beef short rib.
with beef
Oh,
short rib.
wow.
Wow.
That was a party in my mouth, let me tell you.
Where did you get that? Or did you make it?
No.
It was from a place called I Heart Mac and Cheese.
Oh, my
Yeah.
gosh.
Miami?
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, actually,
Good.
they're all over Florida.
I was
Insane.
so I ordered around 10 p.m. Yeah, I ordered around 10 p.m. and it didn't show until like 11:30. It's like I don't know. I guess they were backed up, and I was like in my 10th sleep. Like I was in deep REM. All right,
Yeah.
and as soon as I heard that, cardboard bag
that
and the
was it.
smell of the mac and cheese, I'm like, food. So yeah, I would say
That's number one.
grilled cheese. Yeah, I guess.
What about Fireman Derek?
Yeah, some sort of like dessert, maybe like something with Nutella and pasta / pizza.
That's 4. I
You're all
got
over
2.
the board. Man.
All right. So next one. I can't even say this dude's name. Or Aaron. I'm just calling Aaron. This is actually like a PT question for you. What do you do when an athlete is dealing with knee pain when doing squats, iso lunges, patellar tendonitis? Do we train around the injury for the time being, or progress it slowly and then get back into those movements?
I think a combination of those two. I think he has the right idea. I think in the physical therapy world, but some people tend to make injuries more complex than they actually are. I think for the most part is the way that you're trained in school is like you're almost trained as like a salesman. You want to get people to buy into what you have to say.
Yeah.
And so we complicate things a lot to make people dependent on us. And that's when I guess we didn't even go into PT, but that's one of the things that really turned me off from the profession was that I felt like things were a lot simpler and you could easily empower people with some knowledge and then send them on their way, you know?
Yeah.
So with any injury, so I've made videos about this, like how to overcome any injury. It's like the principles are always the same. It's, the first thing you do is you calm shit down. So if there's a movement that's making your pain worse, whatever that is, not saying eliminate it from your training, but temporarily remove it, right? And that should be such common sense. As athletes, that's hard to do, right?
And people get so mad at doctors when they say that.
You can't do it.
No, we used to do that. You go to a doctor and he just says what hurts, and then he says don't do it. But that's actually good advice. It's
It
step
is
one.
good.
Yeah.
It's step one.
For sure.
Now, this is where it goes wrong. Like you don't want to eliminate that movement and then not offer the person a substitution for that movement. No worries. Substitution for that movement. So you cannot take it. It's like the same effect as when I tell you, hey, don't eat a cheesecake or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I have to maybe give you an option, right? So that you at least have somewhere to go.
Yeah.
So remove the thing that's making you feel worse, and then substitute it for something that makes you feel better.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, whatever movement that is, because the worst thing that you can do is remain sedentary with any injury. Motion is lotion. I hate saying that because it's like so cliche, but it's true. So with any injury, you want to find a movement that actually makes you feel good, right?
Psychologically, right? That's
Yes, especially if it's something that brings meaning to someone's life. Like you can't just take it away from them because that's just gonna catastrophize and make them feel worse and perpetuate that fear cycle and that them feeling bad about themselves. It's just gonna make everything worse.
Yeah.
So now that you're past that, we're finding movements to make you feel better, and then the main reason why injuries happen is it's a simple equation. It's when the load exceeds the capacity or tolerance of the tissues, that's when you get hurt. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. Like when people are trying to find the cause of an injury, it really, like that should be a red flag for anyone. If you go to a PT chiro or a personal trainer, if they tell you why an injury happens, that's a pretty clear clue that they really don't know what they're saying and that they
Say that again real quick. Just say it again.
what I just said.
Yeah, just
that
say
they
it
have
again.
no clue what they're saying.
Yeah.
If they tell you why you're getting injured. Yeah, it's like no one knows. Like, stop trying to play Sherlock Holmes of injuries, man. That pisses me off, right? Like, you don't know.
Because it doesn't make a difference, right?
It doesn't make a
The
difference.
treatment is the
Because
same.
the treatment is the same. It's exactly what I'm telling you. These steps, like, that's what you should be doing. Why it happened, it doesn't matter, because you're never going to know why it happened. And you're never going to know exactly what is happening. So why are we even trying to figure it out? It doesn't matter. So, yeah, so not placing any importance on what the diagnosis is or why it's happening. Now, once you understand that all injuries happen because of that very reason, you should need to manipulate both sides of that equation. So you have the load component. So now we're going to have to manipulate the load and then the tolerance of the tissue. So how do we manipulate the load? Well, we start progressive exposure to whatever movement, whatever load you're doing, whatever exercise you're doing. We start from below 50% and we start trying to build the tolerance of that tissue, of that movement, progressively. And I think this where it goes wrong is that people have this made up timeline of how fast they should recover after an injury, or how fast their pain needs to go away. And they base it off of like these weird arbitrary numbers that you find on the internet. It's like, 2 to 4 weeks when you have patellar tendinitis, or 6 to 8 months after a shoulder surgery. It's like, man, everyone heals differently. So don't go based on that. Just go based on, use pain as your guide to progress. If you try X amount of weight in a week, and then that same weight the next week caused you pain, that means you got to take a step back, and that's normal, right? Like, progress never happens linearly, and it definitely doesn't happen that way when it comes to injuries. And then the most important part about understanding injuries is understanding what pain means and what it doesn't mean. So I don't like subscribing to one particular thought camp, thinking camp. So now there's like this war between the biopsychosocial model and the mechanical model of pain. And I don't like falling into either one. I like just playing things by ear and understanding the person that's in front of me. But it's important that we understand the role that pain plays in any injury. So a lot of people try to avoid pain, right? They don't want to feel it. They don't want to experience it. They immediately correlate it with tissue damage, with the fact that there's something wrong with them, right? And I think once we change our mindset from understanding that pain is just, it's a perception from your brain that has nothing to do with the actual damage of a particular tissue. So the perfect analogy that I always refer to, it's by Greg Lehman, and that's thinking like, so pain is, imagine a smoke alarm in your apartment. Like, have you ever been cooking bacon and it just goes off? There's no fire there, right? So pain is like a smoke alarm. It's just telling you, hey, check this out. But it doesn't tell you about the severity of the damage, or whether or not there's damage, or what's going on. It's incomplete information. It's just telling you, hey, make sure that you pay attention to this. And so if we use pain as our guide, and we just understand that it's part of the experience of living and of training, instead of being paralyzed by it and thinking that you need to fix something before you start getting back into it and start getting to all of these conclusions in your brain, then you can use pain as an advantage, right? Instead of getting paralyzed by it and thinking it's a disadvantage.
So how do you use, like, I don't mean to start you, but like tolerance, because I have a high pain tolerance. Like, I had broke my hand, and I didn't know it was broken. I thought it was sprained because I wasn't sure. And then I went to a fight with that broken hand, and then I made it worse. But how do you work with the patient with tolerance to pain, or knowing their tolerance to pain? Or,
I mean, that's an answer that I think only you can know. I think through being in touch with your body, right? Like. And again, like with a fracture, I mean, obviously that's something that you should get looked at, and you should get a cast, or should definitely step back from whatever that it is that you're doing. But I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. You know, it only you know your body best. I can't tell whether or not you're ready to fight if I'm not experiencing what you're experiencing, right?
Yeah, because I feel like it was like a mental thing.
Those learning experiences are important.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure if that ever happened again, you'd be like, I should probably go get an X-ray.
So what I learned is that now when I feel something, especially here, like if I feel anything, I'm like, okay, I know I have a high pain tolerance, so I'm feeling this. I should probably stop for a second and figure this out. Yeah, that was like the only way that I was able to measure it. And I was wondering how you gauge the tolerance, like, or knowing.
Yeah, that's called
actually the person.
Yeah, that's called sensitivity. So going back to the alarm example, it's when the alarm is super sensitive, so that means it's going to go off for no reason. And then I guess there's people like you whose alarm is not sensitive at all. So for you, I don't know, but
it's hard. Yeah.
But that it goes back to the understanding of pain. So, like, what's making your alarm go off? Why is there so much sensitivity there? Usually, with something like patellar tendonitis, for some reason, their knees are being highly sensitive to the movement, and what you have to do is pretty much expose them to those movements slowly. Like, you used to suffer from horrible patellar tendonitis when you did lunges, and what did I tell you to do? More lunges. You know, like without weight. Like just go through the motion and like pretty much to teach your brain that movement is safe. You know?
Oh, wow.
And slowly habituate yourself, expose yourself to those movements that initially cost you pain instead of avoiding them forever. And then habituate. It's like Muay Thai fighters when they condition their shins. You know, or their knuckles, right? It's the same exact thing. You're not gonna callus them. You can't avoid it forever. So going back to patellar tendonitis, stop doing what hurts, find movement substitution so that you can keep moving, and then slowly bridge the gap from not doing the movement to doing it through progressive loading. And it's just always and understand pain and what it means.
Now you're working through eccentric, isometric, and then concentric, going through all those ranges.
Yeah, so I mean, isometric is your safest form of contraction. Like pretty much nothing bad can happen when you're doing isometric. So that would be the perfect first move introduction for someone, like an isometric wall sit. Perfectly safe. You're at least doing some movement. You're contracting the muscle. It brings exercise-induced analgesia. So what that means is that it for a temporary period at least, it decreases the amount of pain that you're feeling, which can allow you to maybe train a little bit that day, right? So isometrics all the way safer. You would move into eccentrics to strengthen the tendons, and then concentric through the motions through progressive loading.
Gotcha.
So that would be like the logical progression. But that's it. Like that, literally, that's the bread and butter of physical therapy. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated.
Yeah, perfect. That's great. I tore my ACL, I don't know how many months ago.
A long time ago. We'll
Chop
just
your
say
knee.
that, like way too long ago.
Fuck it. I'm just getting it off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like last year.
So
It was last year.
I was doing jiu-jitsu, and I got caught not caught in anything, but I was standing up in guard, and in the gi, there's a lot of friction. So when I went to get out and turn, he had what's called a de la Riva guard. So he basically wrapped his leg around my leg and had my ankle. So when I went to like just peek out and turn, my foot was stuck underneath his hip, and it's fucking just, I was like, oh. And you know though, that time where you're like, you know you're injured, but you don't want to think of the severity of the injury. That was at that moment where I was like, I'm good. I'm not good. I'm good. I'm not good. So, and I'm still dealing with it because I haven't got the surgery, but I'm still squatting. I'm still doing all my lunges. I'm still working. Some people are like, how the hell are you doing it? I really, it's not an issue. It's just like rotation and a little bit of like higher level plyometrics. Obviously, I'm not doing. But again, I'm just trying to still stay strong, work the muscle, work the tissue around that joint so that I can get back once or at least not have that recovery process be so long.
Absolutely. That's so important. Like the pre-surgical training, super important.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm on the right track. Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's going to be $100.
That's cheap. I'll take it. Toby says, does she feel her strength training helped in any way when trying boxing?
I feel like it, and we had this conversation too. I feel the most athletic I've ever been in my life right now, and I think I think it has to be a combination of weightlifting and powerlifting. That it's just it increases your proprioception, like just your ability to orient yourself in space. Just the general strength, how it applies to any sort of like more specific skill. It's incredible. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've seen it firsthand.
What's that? You? I mean, well, you're super athletic to begin with, so you just have a very wide range of aptitudes. But I think that strength in fighting with all else equal, you know, your cardio and your mobility and your skill, like it's obviously an advantage. But it's like, would you recommend being a world-class powerlifter in order to help your boxing? Probably not.
Yeah.
It goes back into that diminishing returns and ability to recover and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like I'd like to see what it's done for me as far as just like the type of training that I'm doing now is it's helped me control and be more in control of my punches and placing my punches and just being way more self-aware while I'm in the ring. So like I look forward to seeing your technique and your control, and when I explain to you how to throw the punch and why and how to use your movements that you already know to apply them to boxing, because that's what I do now, understanding I know how to box, but then when I understand the movements, whether it's the deadlift, the sumo deadlift, the trap bar deadlift, or the bench, I know how to apply that feeling and that motion and the purpose of it to my boxing to make me so much stronger and sharper. Would
you guys as fighters think that or say that there's kind of an empowering power of lifting weights when you fight, like just like knowing that you can deadlift 500 pounds or
100%.
I was always the stronger fighter, so that was just because I played college football too. So that was like one of the main aspects that I had: athleticism, and then the ability to produce power.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I mean, the minute when I'm done, I mean, I haven't done it lately, but a lot of times when I do a big lift, like even today, I was just doing some accessory stuff, but I was shadow boxing, and I was feeling the lift from yesterday in my shadow boxing. You know, I may not do it right after because I'm fatigued and I'm tired from the lift, but as I'm shadow boxing, I'm even visualizing the lift and how strong I felt. And even if it's a mental component, I mean, it's obviously a physical component, but it's a mental component too, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Just
but
knowing that you're strong.
Yes, and also it's funny because everybody sees me, like I lift the 100-pound ball, which was a big deal for me, and I lifted it and walked with it, and like, oh, watch your back. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, people don't even understand, like, what.
We set that up.
Yeah, I'm like, I think I know, you know what I mean? But right away, they're just so afraid, and they see me doing that, like, oh, what are you, a weightlifter now? I'm like, oh, I just want to, and I want to educate people on the importance, which is why I love having this conversation. People understand that they can work together. Obviously, as a boxer, I want to be the best boxer, but it doesn't mean that I can't do the lifts and the moves that you're doing to help me, to assist me with that. And it's so valuable. You know, get out of that mentality of like, oh, you're going to get big and slow. I'm not slow. I'm the fastest I've ever been. And I believe it's because of lifting weights.
You make a good point. It's totally the way that you apply those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to apply it to fighting John Jones took a lot of heat for training powerlifting all the time, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at the type of powerlifting that he was doing, we know the guys. Gary.
Which I don't know how did he land that job?
I'm not sure if they're good buddies now.
I bet he just walked in the gym.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
But they were like, oh, you're John Jones. All right, we're gonna do what we know. And that's what happened.
Yeah, right. So he trained powerlifting like a powerlifter, which might not be the.
They're in
where Houston? No,
New Mexico, right?
Yeah,
so that's where he's.
Yeah,
he probably looked around. He was like, "Man, I want to do something different," and walked into a powerlifting gym.
That powerlifting gym in particular is very like dark and hardcore, and you know, they have like they had a company before called Masthetics that had a super cult following. Mm-hmm. So
they're big now.
Now they're getting a ton of exposure. Yeah. But yeah, it just goes into how you apply those things.
Yeah, people ask me about that too. It's like, what do you think about John? I was like, man, it's perfect. As long as when he gets into camp and he gets like 4 weeks out, and you keep it specific to whatever he has to do, and keep his speed up, it's fine. Mm-hmm. But John's always a long guy. He's always has those leverages anyway. So it's like if you can increase posterior chain strength and just his ability to create torque, he's gonna fucking kill people. And he does already, but you know, just that athleticism, that ability, the technique, and then you get him stronger, it's over. You know, so that's why I do like with Dustin. Dustin wasn't strong by any means when we started. Like this was when I started with him. It was probably 4.5 years ago, and he could barely bench press 95 pounds. You know, and he was a 145 pounder, but he walked around at probably like 180, 175. Is a big kid. And now, you know, obviously increasing strength, just general movements, enhance his ability to create torque, to produce power and all that, and that's important. And then on top of that, it increases your conditioning because less things become more energy dependent.
Right.
You know, so that's one thing too, is that with the fighting aspect of it, you don't have a limited amount of time to train strength and conditioning. So a lot of it is concurrent, and that's why we have to run and raise all these other demands up at once. But we've been successful with it, you know. But looking at it, you know, from like again with John, I would say the thing that he needed the most was strength, because he was getting, you know, with the limb length and everything else that he does, I would guess that he was put more in a position to get injured if he didn't have that base of strength. So
yeah, strength is the most protective thing against injuries.
My girl. All right, so I'll get one more. Is that one more? Yeah. Logan says, as a powerlifter, what did you struggle with the most when learning to hit mitts and box? We talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah. I mean, stiffness.
Yeah.
just that was the hardest part for me. Just turning the switch off from like being really stiff and stable to being more fluid and finding a rhythm. I think that was the hardest thing. And then the second part was understanding how the mitt work applies to sparring or like actual fighting. It's like two completely different things, you know. And it's like understanding, making automatic the patterns of like reaction, like when someone punches you, like what you do, like do you like slip and punch, or like how do you connect that with like an uppercut, and how that all relates, because it's kind of like a dance, right? Like you receive and then you already need to know how you're going to respond. You're going to defend, how are you going to counter punch? Exactly. And that's something that I still don't understand, and it's the thing that I want to spend the most time doing. It's like, besides the technique of the punches, it's like, how does that apply to an actual fight?
Have you sparred?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah, I spar these too.
Oh, we gotta get in there.
Yeah, he trains with us sometimes.
We gotta get in there and play a little bit. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
She wants to spar me. She wants to beat me.
It's broken right now. I can take them. No, but the sparring, it's true, and it's true because women, and also women sparring women, because women move differently than men. So when you're, and I find that when my sparring partners, I spar a lot of girls that aren't at my level, but I like sparring them because I work on my stuff, but I also see how they copy me, and I love to see them get better. You know, Avril Mathy, who is she's a swimsuit model, and I've seen her game grow so much since our sparring, because I can see her kind of copying my moves and my fluidity, and I love to see that, because it's the highest form of flattery is when somebody copies you. So, but it's smart. You know what I mean? Because you're like, okay, I like that. And then you take what you like and then you apply it. And it's also what fits you. But like I said, men and women, we move differently. So when you see a woman in front of you, I guarantee you that if you and I get in there together, it's going to be very different from seeing them in front of you. And you're going to be like, I think it's going to open up your eyes a lot to a lot of different things.
And the force behind the punches of a guy. Of course,
yeah.
Like there's sometimes...
And they're heavy-handed. It's different.
Yeah. Hayden's quartered me before, and he just starts doing this. Boom, boom.
Oh, no.
Boom.
Wait, listen. I'm going to get you ready for Hayden. That's going to be it. I'm going to get you ready for Hayden. That's it. You come train me. We're going to get you ready for that. We're going to get the rematch.
And most times I take it with like a high degree of, sports professionalism. I'm like, whatever. And then sometimes I'm like, you fucking asshole.
Take it to the street. You got to take it to the street.
I start kicking even though we're like...
Oh, that's so funny.
He's like,
Yeah. I remember boxing, like, before I started MMA, I was boxing. But then when I went back to boxing, like, after, like, trying to just get sparring in with boxers, and they, like, let's say, for instance, they would try to, just lay into me, right? Like, boom, and then I would just throw a little kick. Just be like, and I know she's like, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
But,
listen.
Sometimes it's second nature.
I got kicked twice. I got kicked by Valerie Letourneau when she was getting ready to fight Joanna. Valerie and I go way back. So I went into the gym and she was like, I just got finished fighting for a title, and then I came in and she was like, can I get in? I'm like, of course, my girl. I'm like, yeah, I'll help you out. I get in there with her. She had the shin guards on. We're in a cage, and she throws a kick. I pulled first. Then the second one, thank God, I blocked, because I looked at it like a punch and she was from a distance. But if that would have landed, that would have hurt. So after that, I was like, listen, what are we doing here? But... Well, I thought about it. Well, I pulled because, for me, yeah. But for me, it was more like I looked at it like a punch. Like I saw an object coming at me, whether it was coming from the floor or coming, because I'm looking at your whole body. I'm watching your feet move because I know where you're going to stand, and I'm watching your hands. So when I saw the kick, I saw something coming at me. I knew if I pulled, I knew my distance, my range, which is the most important. And then I also knew if I could block, because it came from the side, which is what I do with a hook or whatever, learning how to block. And then countering off that. But obviously with her, she was so far back, I couldn't really counter her kicks because she was far and I didn't know how to do that. Yeah, that's more of a kickboxing background. It's different.
All right, guys. Well, that's all the questions, or at least I'm cutting it here. Let's go over anything that you guys want to push, hybrid, all that stuff.
Yeah. For the business, you can find pretty much everything through the Instagram, which is just at Hybrid Performance Method. And you can also check us out at hybridperformancemethod.com. Cool.
You can find me at Stefi Cohen.
And I'm at Hayden.bo on Instagram.
Yeah, I'll follow you.
Yes, I do too.
Get your Instagram going.
Oh, I'm Maureen_Shea. You can follow me on Instagram.
Instagram is Daru Strong. You guys know. Website, darustrong.com. Episode 19. I got some things I want to talk to Steffi about without you guys. But thanks for listening. Thanks for viewing it. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Thank you.